As Carlo mentioned, I think I work on a very international scope and scale for many different companies, basically focusing on industrial design, but because of my passion for high technology over the years, I've also had to develop an ability, a competency, and an expertise, and also UI UX design, because some time ago I realized that as an industrial designer, in order to make an impact and participate in the vision and development of intelligent devices, you have to know not just the hardware, but also the software. So while my passion as a designer grew out of my love for beautiful things, but also new materials and manufacturing techniques, my passion at the same time for technology kind of drove the necessity for me to understand UI and UX design. That said, some kind of desire and understanding for answering the question, why is it that there aren't more examples of great design in the world, led me to believe that really a designer has to learn to speak the language of the companies producing objects and have a dialogue with them, and then to promote the envisioneering capability of design, the design thinking capability, how to make an intervention really in the culture of the company in order to have a more strategic influence. So over the years, this behavior or this practice has evolved into something that I call a cross-fertilization process or strategy of synthesizing creative and critical thinking in an iterative, ongoing process of envisioning, discovery, actions of development, iterative trying and failing and trying again until we can have a satisfactory or the delivery of something redefining the future and upgrading the level of design and performance and also overall human experiences. Our practice, we call ourselves a strategic design institution or a small, actually not so much an institution, but a small boutique agency with base in Milan with a satellite in New York. But what do we mean? What do I mean by strategic? Well, I think any good designer tends to be strategic in nature, mostly by intuition, if not with a more overt practice of applying a more analytical process. What we try to do is make a more overt analysis, where the fact is that companies tend to be very good at looking at their market and asking the question, what if? What could we do with the market? The thing that most companies have a difficulty of doing in a very analytical way is having a clear picture of what their own culture is about, and indeed how the space that overlaps with their distinct qualities, where it overlaps with the market, how to innovate in this space. This is the area where the core values really come into play. Simon Sinek, who is a recently famous business guru, calls this finding the why, finding the company's why. This finding the why has also been part of my conversation for many years. You can also call it finding the company's core values, which is also the DNA of the company, the key to their authenticity. What we try to do in our small practice is to not only help the company analyze the potential of the market, but also to truly understand their own company culture and how to innovate in the space where they overlap. This is what we call a targeted strategic innovation. And then once you have a clear idea of what is your clear, distinct, unique advantage, then we can leverage that sort of vision, that practice around the key areas of what I call the cycle of innovation: product experiences, retail experiences, communication experiences, everything around this cycle that goes into the hard innovation, things that can be measured, quantified, performance improvements, etc., but also soft innovation, things that are more humanistic or emotional in quality that are harder to quantify, things that are more qualistic in value, to use a phrase coined by Clino Castelli some time ago. This entire cycle of innovation, or what I sometimes refer to as the brand ecosystem, is a research and analysis, but also a map that guides us in a process that we perform as a kind of an analysis for our clients, but also helps guide the thinking of the project in an iterative, ongoing way, both to communicate to the client what is our findings, but also at any moment in time to help guide them along this never-ending process. So as a designer in my private practice, and also as a member, as the leader of my team in Milan, over the years, there have been some different examples, some a more intuitive approach to strategic design, let's say, with some of my personal work and objects that I've created for smaller and medium-sized design companies, and also in a more collaborative way, as I'll show you later, with some more international, well-known players. Foscarini, as Carlo mentioned in the introduction, was a very important project, not only for me, but for Foscarini, which is today recognized as one of the leaders in contemporary lighting design. But many people don't know that today, at its beginning, Foscarini was strictly focused on Murano glass, the tradition of hand-blown Venetian glass. And Havana was a proposal that ended up being Foscarini's first foray into a modern material such as plastics. At the time, it was a kind of a controversial mini revolution inside the company, but today Foscarini is, if anything, more recognized as exploring the new potential of materials and processes rather than strictly glass. And the success of Havana sort of steered the evolution of that design DNA. Over the years, I've had the good fortune to work with Foscarini on numerous projects. Cloud was my answer to a more visually but also mechanically evolved answer to typical task light for desk use, trying to synthesize all the parts in formal simplicity but also mechanical simplicity. In fact, the invention of the mechanism at the base requires only one simple coil spring for the full complete adjustment of the arm and also the adjustability of the head. Tevu is a wall lamp, which is a kind of an homage to my childhood watching far too much TV growing up. But of course, when I was growing up, and this might date me a little bit, before the era of flat screens, televisions were made from beautiful old cathode ray vacuum tubes. And I remember once accidentally going into a TV repair shop and seeing the naked cathode ray tube, and I always remained fascinated with the beauty and sort of high-tech seamlessness of that pure glass sealed tube. So Foscarini TV wall lamp is an homage to all the TV that I watched as a child, but is also a kind of a double meaning because it reflects its light as a kind of a white aura on the wall. Not only are you watching it, but because I was always worried that the TV was always looking at me, the front of it is completely black and diamond polished and reflective of the environment that it's in. So while you're looking at it, it's kind of looking at you with this identity of kind of like a pupil. LG Electronics is one of the global partners that we've worked with for many years on many different types of products. A few years ago, they commissioned us to use one of their advanced lighting technologies, which is similar to OLED technology, but a bit more brilliant and even lower power consumption. This was one of a line of home and office lighting family of products that we developed for them. This one kind of recalls, in honoring its more digital nature, it kind of is an homage to a printed circuit board or a technical electronic device. In the area of furnishings, furniture, I've worked with Magis, is also an old partner in furniture and accessories design. Labyrinto is a very simple system, really, for a paravento or room divider screen that, because of its modular nature and the extruded system of rigid and flexible elements, rigid panels with flexible connectors, it can have almost an infinite variety of solutions, including a three-way connector. So you can use it to define open office space plans, as well as individual use in homes, where it allows the light to transpire through the translucent screens, but also providing privacy. Spin is also a part of an ongoing research into new materials and manufacturing techniques, which I consider part of my work. The idea of spin is really very simple, because it's taking one very thin but very long strip of 1 millimeter wood and constantly winding it and laminating it around a metal core in order until you have the solid round tables top for a round table. But every one is unique. So it's kind of like a deconstructed trunk of a tree, where instead of the rings being concentric, you have one continuous long spiral of wood. So in this way, there's no really preconceived idea of form. It's the concept of the material and the way of making that defines the overall object. Seamlessness, the idea of evolution of form and seamlessness, integration of functions and elements is a constant theme that I'm really fascinated with. I think this is evident in the Spectre lounge chair for Dune of New York. These are, the legs in this case are identically cast aluminum legs, which are mirrored left-right. So all you need is one cast in order to complete the structure. And then the very thin upholstered seat is actually much deeper than it appears, because it covers the complete thickness of the horizontal element of the frame. And also at the same time, because of the chamfered or beveled orientation of these closed loop legs, it changes along with the position of the viewer as they walk around it. The idea of behavior, I think because of my interest and activity in UI and UX design, interaction design, that informs also sometimes my work as product designer. Tape timer starts its essence when you first come across this object. It's a kind of an innocuous aluminum cube, and maybe you don't really understand what it is until curiosity gets the better of you, and you would pull the ring, at which point you'll discover the extended metal tape, which in this case measures minutes rather than millimeters. So using the idea of a carpenter's ruler, you pull out the tape in order to wind the spring mechanism of the clock, and it immediately starts ticking down to the time that you adjust down to the zero, and then the alarm would simply go off. It's a very simple device, but also very engaging, and it kind of comes to life when the user uses it. Similar to Pushlight, also for the same company, Kikkerland. The company, the owner of the company, Jean van der Laan, called me up. It's a long story why, but he desperately needed a micro flashlight designed and produced really quickly. So he gave me the rough dimensions, and I mocked up in our workshop, I mocked up some rough size prototypes. And the interesting thing is, because it was so small, I really couldn't imagine how ergonomically you could fit in an effective, ergonomic, but also interesting way the switch. And I decided that something so small, rather than sticking a switch on it and fumbling around For the switch, I thought the whole thing could just be a switch. So I came up with the idea, even before I sketched the form, just be able to hold it in your hand and squeeze the whole object to turn it on and squeeze it to turn it off. So this idea of the design of behavior, the design of gesture has, over the years, has increasingly informed my work. In this case, it's also waterproof and has a built-in clip. When I ride around my bicycle at night in Milano, I tend to stick it on my baseball visor cap, so I have a headlight. In the same way, this idea of design of gesture presented itself, or was a point of the research, in the idea of ballo, which is a simple toilet brush that weebles and wobbles when you use it, but of course it'll never tip over. And in the case of ballo, in addition to refining a perfectly visually balanced proportion and shape and scale, it was also a question, and a lot of time was spent designing the behavior of the balance. So it wasn't too fast to seem angry, or too slow a wobble to seem lazy or lethargic. It had to be, for me anyway, just so. Over the years, I've also worked a lot in high-tech and wearable products. The involvement in wearable technology has always been a strong fascination of mine, but I think really wearable objects and accessories really started with the work that I was doing with Swatch in the late 90s and early 2000s. I was given the privilege of really redesigning the entire product line for the Irony Swatch line. The first global watch that I designed for Irony was the Scuba 200, which had to be a kind of a real serious performing diver's watch. And the formal innovation here, because of my kind of obsession with integrating elements and seamlessness and kind of an evolved approach to integrating all the elements. This was the result is that the characteristic of any serious diver's watch is the timer ring. That's usually a kind of a gear stuck on the top of it. And this was the first time that the function of the diver's ring, the timing ring, which is a very important function for a diver's watch because it allows them to know how much air they have left in the tank. This was seamlessly and formally integrated into this spherical shape, which also curves across the bottom for a more intimate ergonomic fit. So this very three-dimensional design language that I helped kind of define and evolve for the Irony line helped to distinguish the Swatch Irony line, which were the real metal watches of the Swatch family, as opposed to the plastic, two-dimensional, more graphic plastic watches that Swatch is really famous for. The success of the work in Irony led Swatch to give me the responsibility for designing for them the world's first functioning watch mobile phone. And like any watch, this had to be waterproof. It integrated all the functions. The dial around the face also functioned to help select the numbers or letters for text messaging. There was an antenna integrated into the wristband. So I was involved not in just the industrial design for this product, but also the UI UX design. And this was released in limited quantities in 2000, I believe. But at the time, there was a commercial disagreement between Swatch and the cell phone providers. So it never reached the mass production, unfortunately. But the work in Swatch and wearable technology, and specifically cell phones, led a short while later to me being recruited to be the first European design director for Motorola and setting up a strategic design center here in Milan, where I also had to recruit and build a multidisciplinary design team here in Milan, while also running teams based in Chicago, the Motorola headquarters, in Korea, and also a small team in China. So it was a very active, kind of insanely productive, but a very busy period very exciting because at that period, its cell phone industry was really exploding. It was really the kind of becoming the center of high tech. And one of the first programs we were given charge of was to create the new flagship leader, which ended up being the V70. So the brief was to create the world's smallest GSM mobile phone, which it was at the time, and to be the logical successor to the very famous flip phone or clamshell phone, which Motorola invented in the original StarTech. Long story short, we came up with this other kind of gesture. The design of the gesture really ended up being the key to the secret of the success. As we analyzed the sort of history of the success of StarTech, was that gesture that it afforded the user. And we wanted to keep that idea of the innovation of the gesture in a different way, which led to this rotating configuration. This was also the first, if not one of the first, cell phones to use real metal, so that it had a solid aluminum shell, and when you spun it open, flipped it open, it had a soft touch plastic finish inside for a more kind of intimate experience with the user. The work during the Motorola years was very exciting in many different ways, including the work that we were able to get supported by the company, the advanced work in wearability designs and the design of services, combining new wearable devices, fashion, modular systems with the design of new digital services, and the entire UI UX experience. If you go on to YouTube and Google or search Motorola New Life Forms, there's a series of videos, short videos, that we don't have time here today to show you, but you can find them. They're very interesting, kind of visions of the future, even though it was a few years ago already. More recently, we've done work with other international players in high technology, including in wearable technology. This is a vision for a larger program that we did for Fujitsu some time ago, which is maybe unknown to many people. Fujitsu is really one of the major technology players in the world. This is a vision for a future scenario of fitness, where not only is the runner, the person exercising, wearing a mobile connectivity system wrapped around their head in the form of augmented reality heads-up sunglasses that allow people to place calls and have an immersive surround sound experience, but the garments that they're wearing themselves are monitoring not only the biofunctions, but also tracking the movements of their body. So because of this immersive real-time scanning and tracking system that is possible today with smart textiles, an avatar can be created and recorded not just of the person's performance. You can see here there's a kind of a heads-up display of their time, their heart rate, their biofunctions, and their lap times if they're going around, let's say, a regulation Olympic track. The system itself is recording not just their GPS movements and recording the time of their performance, but recording the actual movements of their body, of their limbs as they move, and recording it. So day after day, week after week, if you're going to the same park and running the same track every day or every week, you can simply run against the recorded avatar of yourself by simply looking to the side and seeing the previous recording being played back in real time. And this way you can just intuitively increase your performance. You can imagine that this system with upgraded services, you can also run next to your friend who's running at the same time, maybe between Rome and Milan, or download an upgraded function and run against or have a training session with a famous runner like Usain Bolt. Plug is a startup that I was involved with a few years ago, which is a family of, we call physical apps or devices that plug into your iPhone, and combining the physical devices with the custom developed software, it allows your iPhone to do different things that it doesn't necessarily come equipped to do. So this is really an Internet of Things play where hardware, software, connected across the internet, loading up data and gaining data and services from the cloud and interacting with communities makes the overall, let's say, new business proposition more valuable and more enjoyable for its users. So by simply plugging these small devices into your iPhone, you can have a smart thermometer that not only records temperatures of things, foods, liquids, even a bottle of wine, but also can instantly create a profile in a healthcare scenario of someone who's sick with a fever, share the information with the doctor as part of a complete healthcare scenario. Rather than plugging into the phone, the plug can also plug into a body scale to become the brain of a scale that takes your weight and also body mass index. There's also wirelessly connected plugs, like a small weather station that you would maybe mount outside of your kitchen window to have a complete reading and weather forecast of your micro weather situation in your local neighborhood. The interesting thing about Plug as the global art director and of a startup, you're really starting from a clean slate. So whereas sometimes we work for established companies to help them rediscover their authenticity, their core values, their why, the interesting thing about working with a startup is you're really beginning really from nothing. You're the one responsible, and you have a kind of an outsized role to play as overall creative director to define the company's authenticity, to define its why, and to give it form and shape and voice and tone. So as the designer chiefly in charge of designing the physical devices, but also the apps, the idea was to develop a kind of a hybrid language that crossed between the physical and the digital. So the physical devices had a very strong graphic identity, while the apps themselves, as you can see here in the design of the icons, had a very material or three-dimensional feeling. The common element that they shared in between the two of them was this very precision made bevel that was using a very advanced molding technique. So it was almost like the cut of a faceted sapphire, which gave it the overall form was very friendly and precise, but this precision gave it a sort of otherworldly precision and purpose. And that precise bevel, which was a common element in between the physical devices and the graphic user interfaces and icons, was a key element also across the range of devices and even in the approach for the packaging, which are these beautifully crafted polycarbonate boxes. So rather than using recycled materials or easily disposed of biodegradable materials, we took the approach where if people are buying multiple plugs, they would want to keep these boxes and reuse them. And that's why, taking advantage of the design language of the bevel, they naturally lend themselves to self-stacking. And then we promoted the idea of reusing them for many different things, whatever you could sort of use. I have many of them scattered around the house, and they're very handy. Heelby is another startup that we designed their flagship product, both the first and the generation product. This is a wearable technology company which makes arguably the world's most advanced fitness band, similar to Fitbit, or even the health and wellness functions of the Apple Watch. But the unique thing about Heelby is it's the only fitness wellness wearable bracelet that also monitors calories consumed, in addition to calories burned and heartbeat, blood pressure, and the like. So we helped Heelby create their first generation of products and packaging and overall identity, as well as the second generation device. Meme is another startup that I was involved in as co-founder. Meme memory cable is if you imagine your simple USB charger cable to charge your phone, your smartphone, your tablet. The unique thing about Meme memory cable is every time you plug in to the device to charge your battery, it automatically backs up through the use of the app everything that's on your phone or your device. So it creates an automatic backup every time you charge your battery. You never have to think about it. Meme cable is, again, both the hardware and the software design, UI, UX, as well as the device. And what happens is when you plug in the Meme memory cable, the app automatically launches and you get a split screen. And the split screen presents on the left the memory that is on the actual device, your phone, that the cable is plugged into, and on the right, it's backup. So you can instantly tap it and see what information has been backed up, what categories are being backed up, and allow it to run its automatic backup function, or by simply touching and dragging, automatically back up or restore in the moment the desired functions. This also allows you, if your phone gets lost or stolen or irreparably damaged, you can simply go get a new phone, install the app, plug in your Meme cable from the day before, and instantly upload the memory that you just lost in the phone that was destroyed, swipe it over from one side to another, and restore all the data, and you're good to go. Consumer electronics, we mentioned before that I work with many multinational companies, whether it's helping LG define their next generation of smartphones with advanced functions and features, or also LG air conditioner division. Many people probably don't know, or maybe architects are aware, that LG is #1 in the world in interior wall-mounted air conditioners. This concept is also an exploration into advanced materials and technical textiles. So essentially, it's a wall-mounted, horizontal coil fan type air conditioner in a very slim, sleek aluminum case. But when it's activated and turned on, basically it unrolls a curtain that when it reaches its end, it inflates with the cool air that very smoothly breathes into the room in a beautifully diffused way. And in the lower corner, there's integrated controls woven into the high-tech textiles that that accommodates the user interface. More work in UI UX for heating, ventilation, and air conditioning systems, in this case for LG. This is a concept that works on two different ways. The vision is that something that's sophisticated can also, and that requires, that allows a high level of control, can also be very easy to use, as simple as a wall-mounted light switch. So when you enter a room, you can just reach around and intuitively know where it is, hit it, because it has kind of a big button touch switch by default in order to activate the main functions. But if you need to do some more fine programming or adjustment, you can pop this off the wall and use it like a slim, sleek smartphone with the available app. So it works in these different modalities. Helping Samsung develop their next generation design language for their entire family of mobile electronics and home appliances. Our approach here was really, rather than focusing on formal design languages and connecting formal elements across a wide variety of disparate objects, the approach that we took was really to design almost on a nanoscale the materials themselves and the precision, fit and finish, but also ancillary qualities. For example, a solid glass laser cut, a keyboard with glass keys and edge-lit lighting, or micro laser digitally produced etching on the surface of a metal laptop. This particular concept was inspired by three-dimensional mesh of medieval knights. And if you take this three-dimensional mesh and lay it out in a plane and kind of freeze it by overmolding injection molded glass, you get this subtle three-dimensional texture that has a depth that gives a very rich visual quality, but it's also incredibly lightweight and incredibly strong, while also having the combination of very noble materials like real metal and real glass. It then receives a final polish across the top, and as the light reflects, you see this depth effect or its reflective surface finish. So this idea of designing the materials that the devices are made of, rather than the approach to designing the forms, gives all the devices a commonality, but also added functions on a kind of a micro or nano scale by embedding functions like light, sound, touch into the design of these composite materials. We're able to create a family, because the problem with designing digital electronics today is there's such a premium placed on thinness and eliminating mass that it creates a unique set of challenges for the designer. Shifting gears to transportation, which has always been a kind of a dream of mine. I think when I was growing up, I either wanted to be a car designer or an architect. And then when I almost accidentally discovered industrial design, I saw that industrial design, or the world of design, really affords many different possibilities. So this has always been one of my passions, is to do something that I've never done before. And a few years ago, we were invited to participate in a closed competition by Leonardo Helicopter. Leonardo used to be known as Finmeccanica Group, and their helicopter division used to be called Augusta Westland, but now today they're known as Leonardo Helicopter Division. And since about 15, 20 years, they've been developing a very advanced next generation vertical takeoff and landing aircraft, where it combines their specialization in helicopters with the capabilities of a high-speed, high-altitude turboprop aircraft that can be used for military use, which is obviously a big market for them, but also search and rescue, ambulance, taking crew and equipment out to oil platforms. And another division within the company is for executive and VIP civilian use. So when it's fully developed and on the market, and I think it's supposed to come out later this year or next year, who knows what the pandemic impact will have on the timeline, this will be the first vertical takeoff and landing vehicle available for civilian use. The competition that we were invited to participate, only 5 studios were invited to participate in the design competition for the interior of the executive VIP civilian version, which obviously is a very rarefied market for people who can afford, or companies that can afford, a 25 million euro aircraft, to design the interior of the civilian use version and the exterior kind of graphics. And out of 5 hand-selected studios internationally, we actually won the competition. And I showed this project not because, not only because it helps to fulfill a lifelong dream to design aircrafts as well as cars, planes, trains, automobiles, and also yachts, which we'll get to towards the end of the presentation, but also because this project, the fact that we won, and I will show you a short version of the presentation now of the winning design. This was the project that caught the attention of the yacht company that we're working with now, that I'll show you after. So now there's just a 5-minute video I would like to show you. to explain this project.
Active skin. The foundation of the interior design is a system of modular surface tiles combining luxurious finishings with advanced functions. There are 5 types of tile modules seamlessly integrated into the walls. The unified tiles create a subtle yet dynamic continuous surface texture inspired by the twisting double helix, a core theme of the overall design reflecting the advanced twin-phase multi-directional capabilities of the AW609 aircraft itself. Active windows. The centerpiece of the interior is the seamless wraparound window system that creates an atmosphere of roominess, transparency, and connection with the outside. The 3-layered system starts with thin, flexible OLED panels using daylight spectrum filters. The active matrix illumination is fully interactive to digital inputs. A series of miniature video cameras mounted on the exterior surface of the fuselage provide input for changing natural light in real time. The final effect is of a real continuous wraparound window. Diffused natural daylight penetrates the cabin throughout, constantly adjusting to changing light directions and external conditions, thus creating a feeling of spaciousness and an immediate connection to the environment, augmenting the dynamic flying experience. Active skylight. The active windows are complemented by the recessed active skylight. A network of hidden short-throw pico projectors are wired to roof-mounted video cameras, displaying real-time views from above the aircraft onto the cabin ceiling. Soft structures. The soft structure seating platforms appear to be suspended from the floors and walls, emphasizing the light, open, airy feeling of the cabin. The curved, flowing design of the soft structures create distinct shared seating zones, augmenting the social dynamic and communal flying experience. The primary soft structure at the rear of the cabin creates a spacious yet intimate seating zone connecting 4 chairs in a flowing wraparound booth-like arrangement. Forward in the cabin is a second wraparound soft structure connecting 2 facing seats, also with fully integrated services and functions. Mini lounge. Complementing the forward seating area across the aisle is a full-featured minibar and separate jump seat, together creating the 3-seat mini lounge. The sleek, compact minibar features a removable work surface that folds to reveal a sink with hot and cold running water and a large slide-out trolley with carefully designed holders for full sets of flutes, tumblers, and wine glasses. Lavatory. When needed, the mini lounge jump seat flips up to reveal a hidden toilet. The double-action cockpit door rotates and slides to close against the frame of the glass divider panel. Once the bathroom door is locked, the transparent panel becomes opaque utilizing LCD smart glass technology. Livery and graphic identity. The ever-present double helix spiral throughout the cabin is a continuous reminder of the unique advanced twin-phase capabilities of the AW609 aircraft. In keeping with the theme of transparency, this motif becomes the iconic signature element of the holistic design, not only for the interior, but also for the exterior design of the livery and the graphic identity of this revolutionary new breed of aircraft. Summary. The overall design emphasizes conscientious comfort, transparency, lightness, and efficiency. Based on science fact, not fiction, it combines forward-thinking, advanced materials, and digital technologies to establish a new paradigm in personal luxury aviation. A symbol for a gentleman's concept of luxury for the 21st century. Ladies and gentlemen, presenting Heli X by Augusta Westland.
So that project caught the attention of Choi Lee Shipyards, which is based in Hong Kong and one of the world's oldest continuously operating shipyards today. They have two major divisions. One is commercial ships and tugboats. They are the #3 biggest producer of tugboats internationally, and also private yachts division. And they came to us at a time when they were really going through a kind of a self-analysis, navel gazing, reassessing the direction of their private yachts division. The Yachts are makers of series production yachts from 100 feet or around 33, 34 meters and below for series production. They also make one-of-a-kind private yachts on order. But the division that approached us was the one that is geared towards series production. So going back to this cycle innovation or brand ecosystem map, the work that we've done with them, which started off as a series of very high-level what-if conversations about the future of yacht design, and then evolved towards discussions about the future of yacht experiences and the company making next-generation yachts. Using this map that I showed you earlier as a guide and as an analytical tool, we were able to map out not only what they're all about, what the competition is doing, but also kind of project and build out the next generation of innovation opportunities and strategies, and then make a kind of a plan. So step one was this analysis, research and analysis, to understand what were the opportunities for innovation according to their unique vision or their company culture. Step two was to get going on the next generation of boat, where we decided that the first new boat to come out from this reconsidered brand would have a distinctly, an aggressively evolutionary approach, but more evolutionary as a key strategy. Then after that, after establishing the brand and this more evolutionary approach, we would really turn our attention to with a more revolutionary focus in terms of reimagining what's possible in yacht and yachting experiences, yacht design and yacht experience design. So where we are today is that the first element, which you see here as step 3, to present itself to the public, is the rebranding of the group itself, where today we've identified 2 unique separate brands. One is Choi Lee Shipyards, which produces the commercial ships and tugboats, and then CL Yachts, which is the division wholly focused on private yachts for series production, which is an all-new brand. So this is kind of a brief story, an introduction of the new brand, which, again, following the definition of what the why is, what the essence of this new brand should all be about, seeks to visually communicate. Obviously, some of you are visual designers, so you know what is involved in this kind of thing, to establish not just the look and the graphic, but an entire system of tools to be used inside and outside the company, an advertising system, and a very unique language that suits everything that we're trying to say about this brand as a leading innovator, which has a tradition of gutsy innovation, but with a new, young, fresh identity, including all new stand design with uniforms and custom-made furniture for the stand and hospitality center. And then turning our attention to the new design language of the products themselves. Now, this is the part that actually started happening before we created and introduced the brand, because one of the things that we discovered in analyzing the company itself is that they're very much a product-first company. So we started off, which is true to their authenticity, by creating the new generation of products. And once we got going in that direction, that's when we turned our attention to the brand, but then introduced the framing and the positioning of the brand first before introducing the new boats. One of the things that was very striking in our research analysis, and this is kind of an advantage, let's say, in being an outsider, is that when we were looking at the competition, it was almost impossible to tell them apart from what, in this case, what we would call a kind of a 200 or 300 meter design differentiation test. It becomes very difficult to distinguish the competition. So this is a kind of test that we hope at the end of the day to be able to pass by having a very unique profile. So this is how we go about defining this look and feel, beginning with the broad brushstrokes from a distance of the boats themselves, everything that would define the look, the feel, the shape, the attitude, the gesture of the boat on the water. And then as you get closer, some unique and discrete iconic design elements, such as the fashion board with a very unique boomerang shape return on the profile, a unique approach to the design of the interiors, even custom-made furniture that you will find on the decks. The vision of the interiors, I'm from New York City. I was born in a New York City industrial loft. So for me, the home really feels like a big open loft, but I think the endless sense of possibility that stimulates the imagination, that is the reason why there's a kind of a universal attraction and appeal to an open loft, has also some parallels to the appeal of being out on the open sea, full of endless possibility in a wide open horizon. So I wanted this idea of a floating open loft, but also to be seamlessly connected to nature. So the seamless removal of boundaries between exterior and interior, while at the same time eschewing the direction in yacht design these days where it feels almost like a luxury villa from the land, but on the sea. We wanted the distinct idea that you're on a futuristic vessel that reminds you of the movement, of being transported someplace like a spaceship. So the first product to be introduced, like I said, the more evolutionary approach, is the CLB 88. This was formally introduced, the design of which was formally introduced at the Fort Lauderdale Boat Show last November. This is an 88-foot or 27-meter yacht, which is being called, the marketing team is calling it the classic motor yacht reimagined. This is really the vision here that we were looking for is, if you close your eyes and imagine the yacht dreams of your youth. We wanted to capture that idea, but reintroduced with contemporary clean lines. So it has a certain familiarity, but also a distinct freshness of modernity in its exterior shape. The real new story is in the approach to the design of the interior, which emphasizes clean, open space. The fact that when you enter it from the back or aft position, you can see clear through all the way forward in an uninterrupted view. The idea of bringing light and daylight, sunlight into the interior and using light as a core material in the design of the interior. Also, the inset teak and holly technique of the inlaid teak floor seamlessly carries in from the exterior deck. So in this way, we're connecting exterior and interior in a very clean, contemporary, minimalist, but also emotionally warm way. There's also an all-new helm design, which will be a signature element for all the new generation yachts. The combination of noble classical materials like wood and leather, but used in a new way, complemented with new high-tech and synthetic materials like Corian or Phoenix nanotech laminates. So everything flowing seamlessly integrated, this idea of movement in a very subtle way, but also very comfortable and livable. And here you see, for example, the custom design stools and chaise longues. The phase two, the next part of phase two, will be the more revolutionary approach. This will be a slightly bigger boat, 29 meters, or the 90, actually it's a 96 foot motor yacht. We're calling it the Luxury Performance SAV, or Sea Activity Vessel. If you imagine, if you take the phenomenon in road cars today, where the sedan is being replaced by performance luxury SUVs that can sort of go anywhere and do anything, but carry their occupants in exquisite comfort, and also the performance that approaches a sports car. That's the idea of this crossover category, where you have the performance and luxury and comfort of let's say a more traditional motor flybridge motor yacht, with the capabilities and of adventure and seaworthiness of an explorer boat. This design will be revealed in late October of this year, so it hasn't been officially revealed yet, but I can give you a little bit of a sneak preview. This is part of the Instagram feed that we manage for CL Yachts. We've started to give these little teaser videos of certain details of the boat, and we'll continue to release them every few weeks or a couple months until the international debut in late October. And hopefully it'll strike a very unique, recognizable pose from a distance. What is my design philosophy? Well, I think every design problem is very unique, and I try to find the most honest approach to each individual problem. Let's say a lot of people understand that design is problem solving, and I believe this. This was one of the kind of mantras that I learned in my undergraduate years studying design in the US. But one of the things that I learned when I came to Italy for my master's degree is that a true master, a design master, is somebody who spends a lot of time defining the problem or setting the problem before you start to approach the problem or solve the problem. Because a designer who has the complete professional toolkit can approach many different problems in different ways. One of the things that I love about design is that you can do so many things. We can solve so many problems, but the what is the problem, or the why of the problem, I think is what distinguishes good designers from great designers. So I try to spend a lot of time thinking about the why and the what of the problem before I start to address the problem. Apart from that, I personally don't have a visual signature or formal style that I am consciously trying to impose or impress upon the solutions, but I do have this kind of obsession for evolution. The idea that the solution expresses a sense of evolution in the consideration of the function, the consideration of the formal elements, the consideration of the materials, the manufacturing techniques, to reduce the amount of parts and synthesize things in a very integrated way. If that's a helpful answer. The next question, you said you were from New York originally and based in Milan. What is it that brought you to Milan? Well, I originally came to Milan, like the students who are listening, to study, to get my master's degree. I went to Domus Academy for my master's degree. That's what brought me from New York to Milan originally. And then the exposure that I got from my master's studies to the Italian industry, to the Italian way of doing things, to the role, I guess, the exposure to the fact that the designer can be not just a protagonist in commerce, which is driven mainly by marketing, but also a cultural protagonist. This I found probably one of the most appealing things to me about specifically the Italian approach. Maybe it's a very, by now, European approach, but it's also, I think, something that's in a positive way contaminated the international design scene, that the designer, good designers is about culture and commerce, not just commerce and sales.
That's it. Right.
Yeah. There's another question about sustainability. Well, I think I've personally seen it as a primary role in my work to always bring up and make the sustainability part of the conversation at every level, at every opportunity with all of my clients. It's not always successful, but I think that continues to be, and if anything, today is a much more important role for the designer. Keep in mind that the designer is really the one that maintains the pace. The metronome of industry needs to be pushed by and kept up by the designer.
How do you keep up with the latest design trends? What research do you use to inspire yourself?
Well, I'm a kind of a unashamed consumer of news, of technology, of science, of nature. I have an obsession to constantly search more and satisfy a wide range of curiosity. What specifically, I mean, there's an ongoing process that myself and also my studio engage in formal ways, that we're constantly looking to discover and engage and discuss new different things, an approach to design, approach to art, approach to technology, maybe nature, and really all of the above. Specifically at any specific time, me personally, my focus or obsession might become more narrowly driven or inspired by one particular area that could find its way into projects, maybe than others. But overall, there's a kind of a transverse range of interests that also is part that fascinates me about how ideas and the kind of larger zeitgeist of development and the pursuit of ideas in different areas can be compared to each other and informed by each other, and trying consciously and subconsciously to synthesize that in my own mind or in my creative output is an ongoing kind of part of my conscious process. Recently, I'm very fascinated with the crazy underwater animals, kind of aliens that are being discovered deep under the sea. Because while people are very aware that, you know, the space as an important frontier, especially with the recent launch of the SpaceX capsule and the successful docking with the space station, while people are really obsessed about space and going back to the moon and then jumping further to Mars, it's also a fact that only recently technology has allowed us to discover more about our own planet here. And if none of you have seen, I mean, it's really amazing the things that are being discovered deep beneath the sea. Organisms, animals, jellyfish that really seem like out of science fiction. These are aliens on the Earth, things that you would only find in the most extreme radical imagination of some set or production designer for, you know, the next science fiction film, which I'm also a big fan of science fiction and technology in general.
She said, can robotics affect the extent of human intervention in design in the near future?
Well, robotics and artificial information is becoming and will become obviously a really important topic and influence in everyday life, in the pursuit of everything that companies and enterprises do on a big scale, on a small scale, and even what individuals do in their daily work habits, or how we work with and collaborate with each other. Of course, there's a lot of fear. I think justifiably, there's a lot of fear in what machine learning and AI elements can do to influence, or maybe in the most dystopian views, control certain aspects of our life. But I think that the creative, more visionary pursuits, art, design, will always have a place in defining the way we interact, the way we produce, the way we express. I think if well managed, there can be a very good balance and an advantageous synthesis of both. But like any technology, we really have to be careful. I'm particularly interested in swarm technology, because I think, you know, more than individual robots taking over our jobs and our lives, I think the larger scale impact that people are just starting to kind of turn their attention to is the impact of swarm technologies, where you have tens or hundreds, maybe even thousands of microbots that have targeted specific functions, but that can operate in swarms, much like the murmuration of birds. You see birds swimming around maybe at sunset in the evening, or swarms of fish. I think this is really interesting, and it's also an opportunity for expression.
What is your take on sustainability in design?
Well, I was just talking about sustainability just before, that I think it is and remains a very important role. I think designers really have to start becoming more overtly, maybe not aggressively, but decisively protagonists about sustainability. You know, since I was in undergraduate school, designers have always fought a certain kind of micro battle for some degree of legitimacy. Back, you know, in the 70s, the 60s and 70s, designers had to establish their legitimacy by demonstrating to companies that we can make it cheaper, more reliable, and better functionally by testing the ergonomics. Over the years, more emotional qualities have been demonstrated to help companies grow in terms of the market, but also the long-term satisfaction of the user by addressing human emotional needs. But these are kind of ongoing battles. The designer is constantly pushing the frontier to demonstrate to industry, to culture, what design is capable of doing. And I think now designers have to really step up and become soldiers of sustainability. Unfortunately, my generation is the generation that's really kind of chiefly responsible, hopefully the last generation in the generations behind, maybe your generation and the ones behind, the entire era of the Industrial Revolution has left the planet in its current state, where the next generation of leaders, of cultural leaders, political leaders, but also industry leaders and designers have to become a stronger voice as protagonists in this, because it really is becoming the next important frontier. I also think, just one last comment about sustainability, is that the diffusion of manufacturing and the creation of artifacts that will be possible through digital manufacturing, where centralized, vertically integrated factories that are really responsible for some of the biggest damage and raping of the natural resources of the planet. I think the shift in models of production and consumption from distributed manufacturing, distributed digital production, and just-in-time delivery and just-in-time consumption even, which is more service-oriented, can really help to direct the next era of development towards a more sustainable model. Thank you, Carlo. Thank you, Raffles.
And see you soon. Ciao.